Tonight, a fire delivers a major blow to homeless residents in Happy Valley Goose Bay. That story and more details tonight about an international student swept into the water at Cape Spear last week.
What happens when a big bank announces it's closing its doors for good in a rural town?
Oh, definitely going to have a chain effect, definitely, 100%.
I'm Layla Baudouin in Port of Choix, and that story coming up.
You've got to invest in education. Education is what we have to have if we're going to be successful. But you also have to have facilities that are up to par.
MUN gets a failing grade for how it's managing its money and infrastructure. That opposition critic is offering a possible solution.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Welcome to Here and Now. A hotel that has sheltered dozens of homeless people in Happy Valley Goose Bay caught fire this morning, forcing residents out into the bitter cold. Crews also had to contend with the cold, which was frigid enough to break a fire hose. The investigation has been handed over to police, and officials say, fortunately, everyone has been accounted for.
We got a call early this morning of smoke showing in the area behind the kitchen. Once we got here, crews checked it out. They did find smoke in an area of one of the bathrooms, as well as down into the basement. Well, the damage now is from the fire, yes, and the smoke and water, but it's also where they had to pull the walls to get at the seat of the fire, and we think we've contained it there now, but they're just doing some overhaul. Didn't get into the rooms of the Labrador Inn. All residents were accounted for. They had a sweep done of the building before we got here, and my crew's done another sweep. Everyone's being taken care of by NL Health Services, so that's a bonus for them. A structure fire like this, NL Hydro is called in, the power is cut to the building. Before anything or anybody can move back in, the RCMP and Fire and Emergency Services will have to do an investigation. It's definitely bitterly cold. I know we've been swapping out crews. They've been working in there with the BAs on and getting at the fire. I got another pumper over on the other side of the building just in case it would have went that way. But the only damage for us is a few fire hoses that have busted from the cold, but we can deal with that.
Well, a jury has acquitted a Corner Brook man of attempted murder for his involvement in what police called a violent attack on another man in 2023. The RNC charged Evan Long with attempted murder, aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, and possession of a weapon in March 2023. His arrest came after police say a severely injured 57-year-old man arrived at the RNC's Corner Brook detachment. Police say they believe the attack was targeted, but a jury delivered a not guilty verdict on the attempted murder charge earlier this week. Long was convicted of the other 3 charges. He was released on conditions until his sentencing hearing on March 13th. The RCMP arrested a man at a home in Carbonear today after residents in the area were told to shelter in place. Officers surrounded the home on Adelaide Street this afternoon, and that's where the man was finally apprehended. Harbour Grace RCMP issued a social media post warning the public that there will be a heightened police presence in the area. No other details have been released, but police say it's safe for the public to return to their regular activities. More details tonight about a woman swept into the water at Cape Spear. Police say that woman is a 22-year-old international student from India, and she's now considered a missing person. Police say last Wednesday afternoon, a man and woman were both swept into the water, but only the man was able to climb back to shore. The RNC says all search efforts have been exhausted, and it's not treating the woman's disappearance as suspicious. St. John's Fire Chief Dean Foley has said there is no likelihood the woman survived and has warned the public to stay off the rocks. A class action lawsuit involving 6 Christian brothers from Mount Cashel is heading to trial in Vancouver. This comes after settlement talks stalled between former students and a pair of private schools. As Ryan Cook reports, a case that started with one man has grown into something much bigger.
Darren Liptrot came forward in 2021 and said he was abused by his teacher in grade 9 at Vancouver College. He suspected he wasn't the only one, and he was right. As of today, 210 former students of 2 BC private schools have come forward to join his lawsuit. Many of those cases tied directly back to Mount Cashel after 1975. That's when at least 6 Christian brothers were transferred from the St. John's Orphanage to Vancouver College and St. Thomas More Collegiate in BC. This lawsuit alleges those schools knew those men were abusing boys in Newfoundland, but took them in anyways. That's something that Darren Liptrot is still trying to wrap his head around.
Those men had no business educating boys. They weren't smart enough, intelligent, sophisticated. They were scumbag creeps out for their own personal gain.
All 6 of those men were convicted of crimes at Mount Cashel, but Joe Fiorante, the lawyer for the plaintiffs in BC, says there's never been a full investigation of their actions after Mount Cashel.
What's shocking to us is that the abuse was able to continue for so long without there being any real form of public investigation or scrutiny.
There was hope that the case wouldn't have to go to trial at all. Both schools stated their desire to settle the lawsuit through mediation, but that's now on hold. Darren Liptrot tells me the talks fell apart once the school's insurance companies got involved. All sides have agreed to go to trial, which is now set to begin in October. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
So here's what we've gathered from talking to local residents.
I spoke with a renter who's facing eviction this fall.
It is not for the weak of stomachs.
What does it mean for you to be able to give that advice and to know that you've helped? Don't look down.
If this is something that you didn't know about, let me tell you.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
St. John's.
Corner Brook.
Shaji, Inuk First Nation.
Grand Falls, Windsor.
New West Valley, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, it's been there for more than half a century, and now a Northern Peninsula town's only bank is closing its doors for good. Residents are pushing the Bank of Montreal to reconsider. Here Now's Layla Baudouin reports.
It's a hard blow, says longtime business owner Shirley Spence.
But I know it will have a devastating impact on us right here.
Like the owner and pharmacist of this shop, residents say without the bank, they're in trouble.
If they close the bank, I feel that would be detrimental to the town of Port aux Choix.
From what happens inside the bank to foot traffic, the closure will have a domino effect.
You got a bank in your community for over 50 years, and people is coming in from different parts of the region, like from Plum Point, I'll say, could be further down, up to Daniels Harbour, and they're coming in to do business with the bank. You know, it's a spin-off for this community.
If they're coming from 45 minutes away, they're making a trip of it. They're coming to the bank, they're coming to the grocery store, and they're coming to the pharmacy.
Port aux Choix is a flourishing town, a thriving fishing, tourism, and business community. For 58 years, BMO has been a part of that draw, serving communities all along the coastline.
I run everything through BMO, and I do a lot of banking out there, and some things I have to go in the bank and do.
Port aux Choix mayor and fishing enterprise owner Donald Spence says many businesses will suffer with transactions they can't do online.
And I just consider Port aux Choix the central hub of the Great Northern Peninsula. It's 2 hours from Snatney and 2 hours from Deer Lake, so why didn't you keep this station here, BMO, open here to serve this Northern Peninsula?
Spence says BMO has cited several reasons for their closure, from the pandemic to a lack of busyness, but he's not sold.
I don't buy it, not one bit. I know on Thursday and Friday, when we get paid at our lobsters, we can't get in the bank. I usually wait till Monday or Tuesday before I go in and do my banking, because there's always a line up there.
There's rural bank closures countrywide, but people here say they're particularly concerned for one of their most vulnerable populations, seniors.
They want to go to the bank and they want to see people. They can't do it over the phone. And have you ever tried to call a bank over the phone? It's not easy. It's not easy for me. I get frustrated, so I can only imagine a senior who can't hear very well and, you know, what their experience would be
But Port of Choix isn't backing down. With their most profitable season right around the corner, they're compiling letters of support from communities all along the coast.
I know we got uprising lobster fishery here, going to bring more revenue into town there, and now we got this bank on, and there's a lot of fish companies that deal with the Bank of Montreal.
I'm afraid that sooner or later there's going to be more business closed due to the bank closing.
I just think it's big corporation greed, and it's unacceptable to do with these communities. Like I said, 58 years servicing the town here, and they just pull out like that.
And unless these residents can change the big bank's mind, BMO is set to close its Port of Choix branch in midsummer. Leila Baudouin, CBC News.
Well, a day after the release of an explosive audit of Memorial University's facilities management practices, an opposition politician is weighing in with a suggestion on how to address all those outstanding repairs. Here now, Terry Roberts reports.
If Paul Dinn was a government minister instead of an opposition critic, here's one way he would address all the maintenance problems at Memorial University. Tap into government's swelling future fund, which was established 3 years ago.
So the future does not look bright unless there's some drastic issues taken.
The fund has grown to more than $360 million, mostly from contributions from oil industry royalties. Money can be withdrawn from the fund under extraordinary circumstances. Memorial University's infrastructure is crumbling. The cost of overdue repairs at the university closing in on $500 million. So this politician believes extraordinary measures are needed.
Memorial University is the future for a lot of our residents. It's the future. So why are we not, if we're struck on cash, why are we not using some of that fund now? Because I would say our future is now when it comes to MUN.
Dinn's suggestion follows the release Tuesday of a scathing report by the province's Auditor General.
In fact, I feel Memorial has a serious facilities management problem.
The AG gave the university a failing grade when it comes to managing the upkeep of buildings and other infrastructure such as water and electrical systems and waste management facilities. And despite a decline in enrollment, the university's footprint has grown by over 1 million square feet. Some facilities, such as the new core science building, are mostly empty.
It appears that Memorial has some more space than it needs.
She also found that a student-supported fund that collects nearly $8 million a year for maintenance is not always used for its intended purpose. This despite the need for more than $100 million in critical repairs.
I don't know if I can say this in public, but I'd be pissed.
The provincial government is investing close to $400 million into the university this year. At 70% of the university's operating revenue, that's among the highest in the country. But there have been cuts, including a $10 million deferred maintenance grant that ended a decade ago. The education minister was not available today, so we couldn't ask her if she supports more funding for Memorial. But her department is pleased. The university has committed to implementing all the recommendations of the AG's report.
I don't have a huge amount of confidence right now in how the university is ministered.
While he supports academic autonomy, Paul Dinn believes the government should wield more influence over how the university spends its money, at least until public trust can be restored, he says. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
This could be a consequential moment in Canadian history, and we have to have the resolve, we have to have the fortitude and the strength to ensure that we're standing up.
Standing up and against Trump tariffs and other threats from our neighbors to the south, why Premier Furey says attending the inauguration was an important political move, and what about a provincial election?
Well, we've got a few things going on today. We've got some snow squalls still happening on the west coast, and then also some flurries in the east, but lots of cold air still. And temperatures are going to moderate a little bit as we head through tomorrow, especially up across parts of Labrador, heading back to more seasonable temperatures. But as we head into next week, in fact, by Tuesday, it looks like we'll see a little bit of a warm up with those temperatures returning above zero for parts of the island, and then back again to a little bit above seasonable for parts of Labrador. I'll break it all down for you coming up.
The miners are family, and they have to take care of each other.
It's truly an honor as a Newfoundlander to be able to go out there and bring back a representation of all the Newfoundlanders that weren't able to come back.
Love the world around you because it does shimmer with the impossible sometimes made possible.
Andrew Furey took his fight against Trump tariffs south of the border this week with a trip to Washington for the presidential inauguration. The premier says it's important to push back in person. Here Now's Jenna Head has more.
Andrew Furey made the trip to Washington, D.C. this week for Donald Trump's inauguration, but the premier says it isn't an endorsement for the American president. Furey says visibility is important. He wants to send a message to unite against tariffs that could take effect on February 1st.
This could be a consequential moment in Canadian history, and we have to have the resolve, we have to have the fortitude and the strength to ensure that we're standing up to the President of the United States for the protection of future generations of Canadians, so that we're not mini Americans. We are Canadians, proud, strong, and free for generations to come.
But Furey has been warned. Former House of Representatives Speaker Newt Gingrich told him the president's plans to follow through on tariffs. All the more reason, Furey says, to show up in person.
It's important to be there. If you're not there, they're not thinking about crab in Newfoundland and Labrador unless you're making them think about crab in Newfoundland and Labrador. They're not thinking about the integration of the energy markets unless you're making them think about the integration of the energy markets.
Furey estimates as many as 10,000 jobs in Newfoundland and Labrador are at stake. Half of those working in the fishery, another half from the oil industry. He believes a federal relief plan will be needed for those workers. Taking a page from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, he may hit here at home too by pulling American alcohol from liquor store shelves.
Day one, I've felt that this is an attack on our identity. It's an attack on our unity. And if we let fractures continue within the country, then not only will the president lever those fractures and extract more value from Canada, we have the danger of running the risk of being a very different place when this is all said and done. And I don't think anyone wants that.
Furey is heading back to Washington in a few short weeks. He, alongside other Canadian premiers, will meet with American policymakers to plead their case. But PC leader Tony Wakeham says those trips are a waste of time and taxpayer money.
It's simply an opportunity to go down and celebrate the incoming president of the United States who, on the one hand, the premier makes fun of, and then on the other hand, go down and celebrate his inauguration.
Meanwhile, Andrew Furey says the only thing that is certain about a Trump presidency is the uncertainty that comes with it. Jenna Head, CBC News, St. John's.
Thank you very much. Well, besides the Trump tariff threats, another big question the premier is getting is about whether he plans to call an early election. Ontario Premier Doug Ford wants to head to the polls, saying he needs a new mandate as Canada takes on the U.S. And today on Power and Politics, host David Cochrane asked Premier Andrew Furey if we could see a provincial election sooner rather than later.
Doug Ford is getting ready for an early election. I got a lot of people...
Wish him the best of luck.
I got a lot of people back home calling me and saying, I think Andrew Furey is getting ready for an early election because you're not due to go till October of this year. Are you getting ready to have a spring-winter election in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Look, I'll tell you what I've told all the local media and continue to tell everybody. I'm focused on working on behalf of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, but that said, there will be an election in 2025.
Okay, that's not a no, though, right? I just want to highlight that before I let you go.
Well, you said from spring to winter. That takes up the whole.
Well, we're in winter. No, we're in winter now, and spring is coming. So, are you looking at the first quarter of this year, first half of this year?
There will be an election in 2025, David. You can rest assured.
Okay.
And Mars, again, in the east, noticeably red. As soon as it's reasonably dark, you should be able to pick that out.
Not one, not two, but 4 planets will be visible from the sky this month. Ashley will be back with her forecast, and also we'll hear some tips from an expert on how best to take it all in. It's a cold one out there today, Ashley.
Another one. Yeah. Even some snow for parts of the province again today in snow squalls, and then even here in the east, seeing about 5 centimeters of snow recorded at the airport. Let's take a look at what's going on. It's just cold. Temperatures up across Labrador, still dealing with that Arctic air, and we had a little bit of an area of low pressure just to our south. That's what's bringing that cloud cover to the east, and also that snow today. But the snow squall setup still very much there. Things will start to improve, though, as we head through tonight, especially for those of you on the West Coast. But you can really see it on the satellite, the difference in the two clouds. You see that the higher clouds there from that area of low pressure. And then we've got that cold Arctic air creating those snow squalls for the West Coast. So I zoom in, you can see they're starting to break apart a little bit because the winds are not as favorable for those snow squalls to develop at the moment. But that will re-intensify as we head into tonight, especially from the Bay St. George area down through to Port aux Basques. That's the best chance of seeing some snow squalls tonight. And then that snow squall watch still in place, or at least has been reissued for the Corner Brook, Deer Lake, and even Gross Morin area. And that's because tomorrow that will kick up again for you. And we could be talking about, again, some significant amounts of snow in those snow squall areas, especially those of you that see those persistent squalls, 15 to 20, 20 to 30, depending on how persistent those squalls are. But again, mainly to the West Coast. But we could see some squalls again developing along southern areas, particularly the Burin Peninsula, and maybe even the southern Avalon again tomorrow and even into Friday. But those amounts will be significantly less, with somewhere between 2 to 5, maybe 5 to 10. Potentially pockets of more again for those of you in the Burin Peninsula. You know the drill at this point. If you see those persistent squalls, you'll likely see a little bit more than that. Temperatures today are chilly. Wind chills this afternoon, even right now. Minus 17 is what it feels like in St. John's, minus 23 in Corner Brook. And up across Labrador, those wind chill values are into the minus 30s. That extreme cold warning has ended now for Labrador, but it is still going to be cold tonight, just not as windy. So you're not going to see those wind chills dipping into the minus 40s and 50s, but it's still going to be cold. Minus 21 to minus 29 will be the overnight low across Labrador, and a quiet night for the most part. We'll see some clear skies with northwest winds somewhere between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. And then again, the potential for some squalls on the West Coast. But overall, your overnight lows will be between minus 8 and minus 12. As far as the wind chills go, though, for tonight, you're still looking, this takes us through to the overnight and into the early morning hours. Still, again, minus 30s, nearing minus 40 for Lab West tonight. And those wind chills across the island are going to be into the minus 20s and even about minus 26 for areas through central. So tomorrow morning, when you leave the house, you're definitely going to want to bundle up yet again. So the future tracker showing the snow squalls on the West Coast, you know, kind of dissipating through the overnight with the exception of the southwest. Other than that, it should be quiet right across the board. And then as we head into tomorrow morning, those winds will align and we'll see that potential for some squalls to develop again. So as is always, if we see some of those persistent squalls, it could lead to blizzard-like conditions for extended periods of time. And again, some significant snow certainly possible in that time frame. You can see it on the model there showing up on the Burin Peninsula as well as the southern Avalon. And that's where, if we do see those develop, we'll see the majority of the accumulation. And again, some of these could drift across the Avalon as well. So that is definitely not out of the question and won't be really through Friday. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be chilly right across the board, minus 4 to about minus 8, maybe even a little bit cooler than that for the northern peninsula, with those westerly winds gusting anywhere from about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour for the entire island. And then up across Labrador, temperatures moderating a little bit. So back to where you should be sitting this time of year, with temperatures sitting somewhere around -14 to -18 for most of the Big Land. And again, winds either out of the west or southwest around 50 kilometers per hour, but some sunshine at play as well. And I know I just talked about the potential for some clear skies tonight, and you may want to look up in the sky because 4 planets are visible to the naked eye. And I asked Mike Morrow from the St. John's Centre of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada to guide us in the right direction.
Should start looking to the west because that's where Venus and Saturn are, and they're the ones you're going to lose first. You can't miss Venus. It's incredibly bright right now, about halfway up the sky and sort of southwest. So not exactly where the sun is set, a little bit south of that. And so that's the first thing you can look at. And then down and to the left, that's where Saturn is. It's going to have to be a little bit darker. Venus you can see while the sky is still a little bit, twilight. It doesn't have to be perfectly black to see Venus, but for Saturn, it'll have to be pretty dark. And so that's where I would start. And then just look straight up for the next one. That'll be Jupiter. And once it's dark, be no problem seeing that. The constellation that sort of dominates the winter sky is Orion, which has the 3 stars, which are the belt of Orion. And Jupiter is sort of up off the right shoulder of Orion. So go up from the right shoulder of Orion. And Orion's sort of an hourglass shape. And that's where you'll find Jupiter if you're having any trouble finding that. And then Mars, again, in the east, noticeably red. As soon as it's reasonably dark, you should be able to pick that out.
Is there any particular time over the next couple of weeks that's the best for viewing all 4?
Oh, probably right now, because the farther you get into it, the more Venus and Saturn are going to have set. Saturn won't be moving as fast as Venus, but Venus will start to go back towards the horizon at sunset. So I would say right now is pretty good. And Mars has just come past this opposition where it's sort of lined up, Sun, the Earth, and Mars. So it's as bright as it's going to get right now. Jupiter will be about the same for most of the winter. So I would say right now is a good one, but don't feel bad if it is cloudy tonight. There's probably going to be a couple more weeks where you can see this, but Saturn and Venus will get harder as we go on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me.
An RNC officer ended up in hospital after their cruiser crashed into a utility pole. According to police, the crash happened around 7:30 last night on Topsail Road. The officer was reportedly en route to a call for service when they lost control and collided with a tree, causing extensive damage to the police cruiser. The officer was taken to hospital as a precaution. Well, the St. John's Regional Fire Department will spend more than $1 million to upgrade its gear. The new bunker gear will be PFAS free. That's a plastic that's highly resistant to heat, water, and oil. The move means replacing about 250 sets of gear for firefighters, all in the name of safety.
It is with great pride and enthusiasm that I announce an important step forward in our commitment to the health and safety of our firefighters.
So for some may not know what PFAS is, you may not know what a bunker clothes is or what bunker clothes are to firefighters. However, to break it down in very simplest forms is that it causes cancer. Firefighters are dying of cancer. It's the leading cause of deaths in firefighter occupational deaths. And this is one major significant step that we're going to have to reduce our exposures to chemicals that are killing our firefighters right across North America and around the world. Our department, our members are suffering of cancer. They're dying of cancer, they have cancer, and they're dealing with cancer. So yeah, we are dealing with it real time today as we speak. We have current members that are dealing with it actively right now. It's the number one cause of death in firefighters right across North America within the IAFF. So yeah, this is a huge piece of moving forward for us.
Well, we've been investing. It's very important that we invest in our fire department, the work that they do, and the way that they provide safety and assist our citizens is vitally important to the city. We want them to be in the most protective gear that's available, and they put their lives on the line regularly for people in very, very challenging situations. So we want to make sure that they're safe at work, they got top-level equipment to keep them safe, and that they're safe when they get home as well.
This is a monumental day for us, and it's great for all of us that are current active firefighters, and it's even more significant for those who are just entering the job by limiting their exposure. So I want to thank the department, I want to thank the City Hall, the Regional Board, and everybody that was involved in this, and understand that it's extremely important for firefighters and extremely important for our occupation and for the things we do. So thank you.
Canadian health experts stress a proactive approach to aging to prevent injury and illness, but this province's aging population scores well below the national average, according to a new report from the Seniors Advocate. Here Now's Julia Israel has more about what some seniors are doing to keep fit and get some expert advice.
And we say, through movement, I find health. Through movement, I find health. This is Nia on the Rock, Neuromuscular Integrative Action, a class exercising the physical and the mental.
I'm here because I have arthritis and I find that every part of my body is being moved.
I just feel that I'm more, more able to move without the pain. And
the negativity that you just feel like you get rid of is unreal. Nobody needs negativity in their world. They just need to relax, have fun, enjoy life. And that's what NIA is all about.
It's been around for more than 40 years. Here in St. John's, Elaine Dunphy has been doing it since 2017. She says it's a gentle way for older adults to get moving, practice balance and coordination.
You've got one foot slightly in front of the other. You're going to draw a big circle. I'm all about the joy, trying to help people find a little bit of joy through movement. With NIA, you get body, mind, spirit, and emotions work. I have some students that have Parkinson's, MS, fibromyalgia. I've got cancer survivors. I've got people with bionic hips and knees. So it really is open to anybody. It lets you get in touch with your inner 5-year-old kid. So if you're stressed when you come to my class, you're not stressed when you leave.
I retired early from an injury, and I was just trying to get myself to feel healthier without being too strenuous. I had setbacks. Last spring I fell. What it helped me do is slowly build my own muscle mass, because when you get ill, that's the first thing that really has a problem.
The number of falls among seniors is on the rise in the country. Now, a lot of that is because we're an aging population, but still, falls are the most common and preventable health issue that seniors face. And that's not just me saying it.
Falls aren't an inevitable part of aging. We know what causes them, and there's so many things we can do to help reduce that risk. If you're looking as a senior to reduce your falls risk, then we want to be doing resistance type exercises and also exercises that help to improve balance. If you look at the physical activity statistics, we are the least physically active and the least healthy of provinces in the country.
Experts say we need at least 2.5 hours of good cardio a week and twice a week of muscle training. About 30% of seniors in the province said that they get that mark, but I'm 26 and I can't even keep up.
There's two things that happen after people fall. I mean, the physical injury is big, but there's also that fear of falling that develops in many people even without an injury, and they start to restrict the activities that they do because they're afraid of falling again. And that can make them more isolated, less active, which just starts that cycle going.
What do you choose? Joy!
Recovery is about the physical and the mental. The best thing you can do is get a routine going.
I think people having a regular program that they feel comfortable with, that it feels more like a social thing versus strict exercise once a week. And so you get the community building, you get that sense of companionship, and you are moving.
You got to start somewhere, because when you're a senior, the worst thing can happen no matter if you're sick or if you're well. You need to socialize, and getting out like this is wonderful. And sure, you're hurting, but you forget, you make new friends, you do things, and this is what has happened for me. And I work hard, I'm getting better, and when you see you can improve a bit, encourages you to continue on more.
So the main takeaways: stay on top of your medication, limit risky behavior like climbing and stuff, and do things that make you wobble. Age doesn't matter, start right now. I'm Julia Israel with CBC News, St. John's.
Amazon Canada says it's closing all 7 of its warehouses in Quebec, a move that could result in the loss of more than 1,700 jobs. A company spokesperson says the online retailer will outsource deliveries to contractors, insisting that the decision is tied to cost savings and not the recent unionization of about 200 employees at the Laval warehouse. The company has long been criticized for being anti-union. It's not clear exactly when Amazon plans to close the facilities, but a spokesperson told Radio Canada it would happen in the next 2 months. U.S. President Donald Trump has been announcing sweeping actions just days into taking office. The latest one, ordering the closure of all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. Another one is giving enforcement agents wider powers to carry out his pledge to deport millions of undocumented migrants. The CBC's Chris Reyes reports.
President Trump has expanded the powers of Immigration and Customs Enforcement Officers, or ICE. The new policy was announced by the Department of Homeland Security Tuesday and took effect immediately. It allows for expedited removal after arrest if an illegal immigrant can't prove that they've been in the country longer than 2 years. It also means that ICE can bypass court proceedings. Tom Homan, Trump's so-called border czar, was asked about raids, where and when they would happen. Here's what he said.
I wouldn't call them raids or target enforcement operations. They know exactly who they're looking for. They know pretty much where they'll find them. So again, these are well-planned operations. They're well investigated.
There are some 250 sanctuary cities and states in the United States where local policies either limit cooperation with ICE officers or prohibit asking about a person's immigration status altogether. Many of these cities, like Chicago and New York, are led by Democrats, and they are gearing up for a fight. Now, in another sweeping action, the Trump administration has ended all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. All federal employees in DEI roles are to be placed on paid leave by tonight. Trump is also putting federal agencies on deadline to come up with a plan for firing those employees by the end of the month. The head of the U.S. Coast Guard has also been dismissed. She was the first woman to hold that position. One Democratic senator said she was put into that role for good reason.
Literally, issues of sexual assault and sexual harassment at the Coast Guard Academy and at sea, and people covered it up. You're going to fire her over the fact that she wanted to clean up a mess created on a previous watch? It's the wrong decision.
All DEI-related offices will shut down, and any mention of such programs will be removed from all federal websites and social media. This essentially undoes many of Trump's predecessors' initiatives to promote inclusion within the government and to address what President Biden called historical injustices. Chris Reyes, CBC News, Washington.
Well, another sweeping action from Trump. He says the U.S. government will recognize only two sexes, male and female, and that biological classification can't be changed. Activist Gemma Hickey was the first Canadian to receive the gender-neutral marker on their passport, and Eddie St. Cyr is the co-chair for the St. John's Pride group. Both were guests on the St. John's Morning Show and spoke with host Jen White.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
I mean, it's heinous. I think it's really interesting that of all the things that, Western societies are facing right now, be hunger, people war, housing crisis, healthcare crisis. In the States, you have a crumbling education system, that this is the priority. This was elevated to the level of being included in an inaugural speech, and I think it's really telling of the type of hateful rhetoric that that administration is pandering to in their voter base in the States. And for anybody who's kind of espousing this administration, these policies, or these kinds of approaches to governing society, I think you've got to take a moment and look in the mirror and see what realities we're facing. Like, this isn't a story anymore. This isn't a hypothetical. These are real things that are happening in one of the biggest G7 economies in the world. So, I mean, first and foremost, we're really concerned about citizens that live in the United States. We know that just at the state level, changes in these kinds of laws increased youth suicide by 79%.
I'm concerned, obviously, for people like me in the U.S. who have changed their gender markers and what that means for them now and what they'll have to go through, because it was such a fight to get there, essentially. Mm-hmm. And, our rights were never given to us. We've had to fight for every single one. And, it's unfortunate that with so many problems in the world today, that people are so focused on what people are doing in their relationships or what people are doing with their bodies. Today, I'm traveling to the U.S., but I don't know if I'll get across the border. Hopefully I'll get through, but I don't know. But the thing is, we have to try. You know, now is not the time to go back into our closets. You know, we need to be ever visible, and representation counts now more than ever.
A wartime crash site brings an American son to the place his father perished. Watch The Peacemaker, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
All right, we're going to have a look at the long range, and that means we get to look ahead to the weekend.
We do, finally.
How's it shaping up?
Not bad. Depends on where you are. Temperatures are going to start to moderate a little bit, which is nice. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head into Friday. So that Arctic ridge of high pressure that we've been sitting on is pretty much going to continue up across Labrador. Now, across the island for Friday, we're likely going to see the potential for some snow squalls again on the west coast. And then again, some more snow not associated with snow squalls, but that likely for, again, the Burin Peninsula, parts of the Avalon as we head into the evening, through the day and then into the evening. But temperatures will warm up a little bit. We should be hovering around -1 for St. John's, and then temperatures around 0 degrees for Marystown. And Central and West Coast will be sitting in the minus single digits. Now, the Northern Peninsula, you're still tapping into the minus double digits. That will be the story up across Labrador as well. But again, more seasonable. This is where you should be sitting this time of year. A little colder, though, in Lab City, where you'll hover around -19. And you may see a few flurries through the day, but overall, it'll be a pretty decent afternoon. And then as we head into Saturday, most of the snow squall activity should end, and the winds should let up a little bit as well, because it will have been fairly windy most of this week. Labrador, again, another quiet day expected, but we will see some clouds on the increase as the afternoon rolls through. But again, the best chance of some flurries or light snow will be along the southwest, potentially the Burin Peninsula, but for the most part, the southwest. Overall, some sunshine in the mix, and temperatures will drop back down well below 0 again through Saturday, anywhere from about -3 to -7, double digits, minus double digits again for the Northern Peninsula, where you'll hover around -10, and then warming up slightly for the rest of Labrador, between -10 and -15 as our daytime highs on Saturday. But again, it will be a beautiful day as far as that sunshine goes. Now, temperatures over the next week or so, or the next 5 days, should hang out in the minus single digits. We'll see a bit of a dip on Saturday, like I said, but this is below seasonable, but it should head back up to about -1 to -3. Sunday, still looking at the potential for some flurries. Monday looks beautiful at this point for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland. And then for Central, you're looking at a nice stretch of weather as well. Beautiful, beautiful weather to get out and enjoy the snow that has fallen with the sunshine. And then Western Newfoundland, you're going to continue to see onshore flurries pretty much on and off until we get into next week as well, with temperatures down somewhere between -2 and -4. But again, no one, I'm sure, is complaining on the West Coast with the lack of snow that we've had. Now for Eastern Labrador, you're looking at a pretty beautiful stretch of weather. You may see a few flurries by the time we get into Sunday and Monday. But temperatures really not moving a whole lot, but back down to the -20s by the time we get into Monday for Western Labrador, with some sunshine and again, a few flurries here and there. Our weather photo of the day just outside of Deer Lake. Time for a boil up. It has been,
Oh, what a crowd.
Yeah, perfect night, isn't it? I think this was last week, but Mike shared this shot with us. And I appreciate that. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that looks like they're having a time.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing better than a boil up.
Yep, and lots of snow on the ground there. Not so much here where we are, but Florida.
Yes.
My goodness.
Yeah, tons.
Incredible. They had a record, the biggest snowfall on record for the state.
For the states, yeah, well, for the state, really all along that Gulf Coast there. I mean, yesterday we were talking about the blizzard warnings in Louisiana and parts of Texas, upwards of 10 to 20 centimeters falling. Incredible.
Yeah.
Snow on the beaches. I mean, you never see that. You always go escape the snow, not go to it, but yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to check in with some snowbirds and see what they think of it all.
That's
if you
a
go
good
to
idea.
Florida to escape the snow.
If anybody's watching, get a hold of us. Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.